Hey everybody. Hello, hello, hello. Hey Leo, how you doing?
Hi there. Hi. Very well, David. Very well.
Good, good, good. And hello Christo. Good to see you here. Sounds like you got your final preparations in the sanctuary on September 5th. Boy, that's cutting it close.
Yeah.
Rosh, Rosh Hashanah is, what is it? Is it the 6th at night? Is that when it is this year? Or maybe the
Yeah, I think it
7th?
is the sixth.
Yeah, no, no,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the 6th at
Now
night.
you're catching me out, aren't you? You're testing me. You're
No,
testing me. I
sorry.
didn't know this was going to be. I didn't know this was going to be an exam already.
No, sorry about that. No, it's the 6th. Right. Erev Rosh Hashanah is the 6th, Monday night, the 6th. So final prep on Sunday. Yeah, I have a sense that, again, we're all feeling a bit caught off guard. I don't know if you have the same thing across the pond. I have this feeling
Yeah.
that a lot of people are just feeling, again, sort of caught off guard by
Well, don't
everything.
we all every year we either say, it's like the high holy days are early this year, or the high holy days are late. But
Right.
as you know, they're never early or late. They're always at the same time. But it just always
That's
feels
right.
that way. But this year, because it's really early in September, it's relatively early, and so it feels like an early one.
Yeah.
But I
But I
think
think
we're all
also
caught off guard.
it's
I
not
think we
just.
all, yeah.
I was just gonna say it's not just the timing. It's also I think we were all expecting something different than what we're getting.
That was exactly my where I was going with it as well. We sat there for uh, we went through the whole of 5781 thinking, here we're going to go. This is it. Well, it's only going to be a one-off. 5782 is around the corner, and we're going to be back to normal.
Yep.
We spent the whole of last year saying it's only going to be a one-off. It's only a one-off. We're not going to be doing this in a year's time. It's all going to be fine. And um, I don't think I actually ever believed it definitely was going to be fine or back to normal, if whatever normal is. But it's just suddenly you're sitting there going, "Oh, it's back. It's back how we thought it was going to be." Or
Yeah.
in some cases, it is. We've got a slightly different situation in the UK than I think you have where you are. We've got the majority of synagogues are back, be it that some are in limited numbers. Some of them are taking a different approach to the government have said we can do what we like to a greater or lesser extent. But I think there's still going to be a natural concern by people whether they should or shouldn't be back in the shul.
Am I right that you all seem to be a few weeks ahead of us in how the pandemic is going? Is that I know
Depends what you
Israel
call
seems to.
ahead of where.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, we. I think we have, from my understanding, we've vaccinated faster, maybe, whatever you want to call that.
yeah.
And maybe we're
By
in
the
a
way,
different point of a
is
curve.
Selwyn a relative of yours?
He happens to be my father. We had your mother watching last week, so now we've got my father
Hey,
watching this week.
that's
So
lovely.
yeah,
Hi, Selwyn. It's so good
that's
to
good.
see you.
That's good. It's you wouldn't believe there's a family involvement in it. Anything Jewish, there'll be a family involvement. So there you go. But yes, whether we're in a different place, as in we have a different outcome, I don't know. We're just on a different point of a curve at the moment. So let's just see where that takes us.
Yeah, yeah. I think I'm not sure like you if I thought for sure that we would be coming back, but I definitely did not plan appropriately. That is to say, I think I without thinking assumed that we would be back on site. I don't think I doubted that we would need to provide for a hybrid experience or an online experience, but I'm not sure
Yeah.
that it would. I don't think that I expect it to take as much energy as it's now taking for a lot of people. I'll just say that, in a few of the Facebook groups, there are people asking now still, how many, there are so many synagogues that still haven't decided. Can we be online only? Are we going to do a hybrid experience? There's still, I think, so many communities that just don't know what they should be doing at this point. And I heard one rabbi say actually the other day that I'm in the same boat as her. It doesn't matter to her what the decision is. Let's just make a decision, just so that we can.
Yeah, I've heard this. I've heard this a lot coming from my friends in America that we were very clear last year. We made some really outward decisions way in middle of the summer. This is what we're going to be doing. This is where we're going. So for the synagogues that I worked for, I had everyone that I had agreed to. We had set up, configured, everything was up and running. We were 4 or 5 weekends out before it came. This year, everybody's been, the ones that didn't do the transition last year are still thinking it. And actually today, this morning, or this evening, actually late, a computer arrived, which is going to be, you can't see it, slough shot, has arrived for one shul, which is going to be their streaming server, arrived today. It's super late.
Yeah.
I've got to get that in. We've got Shlichot this weekend. We've got one Shabbat between then and the High Holy Days. It's going to be super tough. And I think I almost feel like it's that people are going in with, they were just so holding out for something else and feeling like we didn't have to do this. We wanted to be back. We wanted all of our members back. And it's going to be hard to celebrate effectively New Year with that sort of feeling like, well, we didn't really want to celebrate it this way. And
Right.
and I was talking to you earlier, I think, as you were saying, the worst bit is going to be right at the very end, is Simchat Torah. How's that going to be for you, David?
How do you do ushpizin, right? The welcoming of guests into your sukkah and dancing on Simchat Torah. The answer is, how is it going to be? I really don't know. I don't know. I bottom line, honestly, I think it's going to suck. I really do. I think it's going to be terrible for another year. We'll come up with some creative thing to do, which will not feel, I don't know. Part of the problem is that we've all grown up with our own experiences and we yearn for those. There's something about, as much as I love change and growth and new, there's something so powerful about coming back in the sanctuary that we grew up in, or with hearing the tunes that we grew up with, or the experiences that we shared on Simchat Torah, going back to those experiences in the same way, even if they're old, they're out of date, the comfort that we get from that. And for me on Simchat Torah, I was living in St. Louis, Missouri, and it was, this crazy dancing. They shut down the road. We all were outside dancing, and then I'll never forget the caramel apple on the top of the flag, because back then I thought it was because it was a sweet New Year. Apparently, it was because we would poke people with the flags, so they put the apple on top to protect everyone. But I think that the experience itself will perhaps be less than, but more painful for me is how difficult it's going to be to bring those memories back and to create those memories.
Let me ask you, David, because I've never explored this with you. How many years have you been a rabbi?
Oh gosh, 20 years.
20
years. Ordained 20 years ago. Yeah.
Ordained 20 years ago. So, and did you grow up in a rabbinic family or not?
No, not at all. We were a typical conservative family. So in America, what that means is we kept strictly kosher in the house, but I could eat whatever I wanted out of the house. 12 beef patties, special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun from McDonald's every Saturday night.
You had to do it under 3 seconds. Under 3 seconds to get the free one.
It's like the what do you call it? The Sons, Haman's Sons. I had to do in less than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
We went to shul when there was a good kiddush, but no, definitely not a rabbinic family.
So you then spent the time going through being ordained, now having, as you said, 18 plus years of doing, really it's like you fix your life around a calendar that has got some real meaning, and some real high points and some real low points. I mean, talking about the High Holy Days, to me, Kol Nidre has always been one of the most moving high points to me. Just listening to the music on Kol Nidre is just something, and for other reasons, Yizkor is very important to me, as well as it is for many, many people out there. And you're just sitting there going, it just doesn't feel like that in the room. So you must, for you, sitting there or standing there as you have done, davening to this, how does that, you must be sitting there going, when do you start, or when you had a pulpit, when did you start thinking about your what you were going to be doing as your sermons for the High Holy Days?
Yeah. For me personally, I would usually start thinking about it a month or two ahead of time. One of the interesting things about leading davening is that people who are leading, especially on days like Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, people who are leading oftentimes forget themselves to pray, I find. Yeah. You know what? I'll just speak for myself. There were many times when I forgot to pray. I was so busy leading that I never, and what I discovered in my short career thus far is that the only authentic experience that I can give to my congregants is for me to authentically pray, and that I do my best leading when I'm doing my best davening. That challenge is compounded tenfold now, because on top of just davening and being aware of what page I'm calling and being aware of the people in the room, now I have to look at a chat window, right? Yeah. I have to be aware of my microphone placement. I mean, it, and it's so important for leaders to not forget why they're there. They are not there to be technical folks. They're not there to be streamers. They're there to daven and to inspire and to lead. All of this stuff is important, and they should have qualified, skilled people to do it. But if we ourselves get too bound up in that, I feel like we have no chance of providing a meaningful experience ever.
And that must be really tough, as you say, because in all that time of all your teaching and of all the education that you went through yourself, and now since that, you've had sort of like a set of rails to say, this is what we're going to do at this time. This is how we're going to do here. Yeah. This is the thing. This is what you need to do. These are the big things you need to bring to the room, etc., etc. And suddenly you're going, I'm not even in the room I was actually planning to be in. I'm staring at a computer. The one thing probably in your conservative upbringing that you went, you're not supposed to be playing with that during that, and you're now sitting there going, everything is turned itself on its head. And
so I got to tell you though, Leo, that to me is what's so exciting about this moment, because you said before, go back to normal, whatever that means.
Yeah.
Normal was sort of terrible. I mean, now, granted, I get paid.
So what did you think it meant to people in the pews like me? So
exactly, exactly. I mean, I was just gonna say, I get paid to pray. Like, I get paid to show up at synagogue, and it was painful for me. There's a reason, and again, you'll have to tell me if this is true in the UK, but there's a reason why the numbers of participants, of people who are engaging in meaningful Jewish experiences in the context of synagogues or Jewish organizations, there's a reason why that number is just plummeting. It's because we're not offering something that is compelling. No, let me change that. We're not offering something that is very compelling in an incredibly compelling way. For whatever reason, what we are offering is not being received in the way that we think it, in the way that we are offering it. And so I actually think that in this moment, when, as you said, even the most basic things are just torn away from us, thank goodness for that. because now finally, maybe we will begin to embrace the power of change, and that some of this is really important. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Christo's comment here, and I think it's an absolutely bang on comment. It's like why I managed to soon part of the service, less for my rabbi and other key lay leaders to deal with. Absolutely, you've suddenly got a need for a different set of skills and potentially a different set of people. And I always find this. I was thinking this over about something else that when you get a different person running an organization or a different person leading an environment, the natural inclination of the person who's leading it before is to say, no, I'll do it my way, and I'm going to show you my way. And then you get somebody else who does it completely differently. And if you can have that opportunity to step back and watch, as a leader, you can actually see differences. You can see maybe it's better, maybe it's not. But invariably, when you look at new ways of bringing things in and different people with different experiences, it changes the dynamics of what happened. So I look back and I look at something like, where I am I'm in liberal Judaism in the UK, which is related into the reform in the US. And I look at when they brought in music, and I look at when we brought in music on guitars, and how that radically changed the approach to bringing a service and a community and a connection to people, because people could relate to something, and suddenly you're starting to see a different experience. And I know you're a rabbi that plays the guitar, along with many that are out there now. I'm sure. Which came first for you? Was it the guitar or the rabbi?
Guitar by a hair. So I was, but they're
Okay.
connected. They're connected. So I was at a such an embarrassing story. I was at a USY convention.
That's great. We
USY,
want this.
yeah, I know. USY is the Conservative Movement's youth group. I was at a USY convention, and I didn't know anything about computers or technology, but I was a geek from the get go. And there was this guy whose name I know, but he'll remain nameless, who was balding and heavy, and he was an advisor at this convention, and he played guitar, and all the girls were hanging out by him. And I said to myself, I've got to learn that instrument. So I went home, I bought myself an Ovation guitar, and I watched Eric Clapton Unplugged on my VHS cassette, and I taught myself to play guitar. I got a lot of girls to follow me. They were all 7 and 8 years old, so I missed my target demographic. But the music, in some ways, I guess the music certainly came before the rabbinate for me. And you're right, that is a hook that allows people to feel connected. One of the things that to me is really fascinating about the use of technology around in spiritual spaces, I'd love to hear what you think about this, is that piece of connectedness. You and I, you far more than I, but are involved in office hours. And there's, which is for those of you who don't know, it's a daily show. It happens every single day where you get to ask questions about streaming and technology and virtual everything. There is such a beautiful community and a sense of connectedness that has grown up around that experience. And none of us have ever met one another face to face. It's all been online. And yet I think that in the Jewish community, there still is a sense that the connections aren't the same in digital space. What's your sense about that? Can we make meaningful connections?
That's a really interesting question. And it's actually something that runs through a lot of things that we do. Do you have a meaningful, in some people, do they have a meaningful connection to the people they watch on TV? Do they have a meaningful connection to and I just go back to it, and we talked about this, the pop stars they see on TV, or they list the records they listen to. Do they have a meaningful connection? Can you have a meaningful connection to Bob Dylan? and does he resonate in what he says and his lyrics that he wrote? And you think, and I would say that you can. I think that actually it isn't necessarily being present. Present doesn't actually have to be physically face to face. I would say, and I mentioned it earlier, and why I like Kol Nidre. I have our music director at our synagogue that I go to, which is the Ark in Northwood. She's a cellist, and she plays Kol Nidre, and quite honestly, she plays it also with a viola. There's also a viola player at the same time, and the two of them, you know, I'm in the room, but I'm somewhere else. I'm somewhere else when I'm in the room when they're playing, because although I'm physically there, you're just hearing yourself upstairs in there because the music is so haunting. Big cavernous room. We normally used to go to Watford Coliseum, which is a world-renowned music venue, which is where we used to, or we have always up until this last 2 years, have our High Holy Days. And you listen to them playing, and also there's some accompaniment as well. And then the whole choir is great. I'm not, different. I'll end up saying thank you to everybody here, but the two of them when they're playing Kol Nidre, I don't know. I am connected to the music that is being played, and I think the question, to answer your question, David, I think you can have meaningful connections to things which you aren't physically touching, and that's the point. Can you have a meaningful connection to something you can't touch?
But will you have that same connection if you're listening to them online as opposed to in the Coliseum?
Yes, I think I will if it's played in a way. But I can, when I listen to some things, on this Shabbat that's just gone by, one of our rabbis, she gave a sermon about the situation in Afghanistan. And I'm sitting there listening to that while I'm at home. And I'm listening to this sermon about Afghanistan and how you could hear it in her voice, her concern and fear for the women in Afghanistan and where that's going. And I'm connected to it. Absolutely. She moved me as much as she would have moved me if I was in the physical room. So I think you can. I definitely think you can have that. I think there's some things you can't. I think when I see pictures of the Kotel and I see people at the Kotel, it doesn't move me as much as being there.
Right. And I think that going back to what you asked before, for me, dancing on Simchat Torah, it just won't be the same as doing it on site, and that's okay. No one is advocate, or I shouldn't say no one. I certainly am not advocating for Judaism to end up, for us all to be in a digital synagogue. That's not the goal here. The goal is, how can we grab this moment and turn it from I've talked about this being a tircha, a burden, and it is.
Yep.
It's a burden. But does it have to be a painful burden, or can it be a joyful burden? Christo, this is such a beautiful comment. It was so much to handle managing the Zoom from the Bima a few weeks ago. That was challenging, but listen, but the people are worth it. And it's not just the people in the room. It's the people in the Zoom. It's the people on YouTube. It's our people wherever they are. This morning, Alex Lindsay, the host of Office Hours, was talking about, one of his big things is digital first events, and he's convinced that the whole world eventually is going to move to digital first events. And part of his argument is that if we don't, from a business perspective, we're cutting off 99% of our potential audience. As Jews, as synagogue leaders, as people who want to grow the Jewish community and Jewish engagement, if we don't embrace this moment and use whatever technologies are appropriate for us, we are cutting off, maybe not 99, but a large portion of our potential audience. And that's a terrible word to use.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw that back to you, David, and say, why are you doing this? Do you feel that you can make a change to that number of people that we are leaving at the wrong side of the Red Sea?
It's a really good question. Why am I doing this? I'll tell you why I'm doing this. And this answer will not resonate with a lot of people. But I'm a fixer. I like to fix things. I'm not a process guy. When there's a problem, I might not know how to fix it, but if I ask the right questions and if I search hard enough, I can usually find an answer and I can fix it. And to me, all of these questions that we're struggling with are fixable. There are answers for how can I get better Wi-Fi? How can I get better audio? How can I get better video? How can I bring visual tefillah in? These are all things that we can fix. And so I derive a tremendous amount of satisfaction from helping people fix those perceived problems. Before I was a rabbi, I was an EMT, emergency medical technician. And I made the move from being an EMT to a rabbi, although I always knew I was going to, but I really made that leap when it dawned on me that you can't fix every injury by bandaging it up and bringing them to the hospital. That some injuries go much deeper. And so by my nature, I'm a fixer. I like to fix things. I like to bandage things up. And this allows me to do that. And the reason I said it might not resonate with people is that I think for a lot of people, they don't see these problems or these challenges as fixable. I think they see them as overwhelming. And I
have a feeling you're going to go to the starfish analogy any minute now.
The starfish analogy?
You must know the starfish analogy.
What's the I've heard it, but now I'm forgetting it. What's the starfish analogy?
So, there's a little boy. There's a tsunami and a load of starfish are on the sand. A little boy comes along. He picks up one and he's throwing them in, and he's picking up another and he's throwing them into the water and throwing them to water, throwing them in the water. A guy comes along. He said to him, "What are you doing? There's millions of starfish on here. What's the point?" And he said, "Well," picks up one. He said, "Well, that one's fixed, or that one's helped, and that one's helped, and that one's helped." And the reality is, with what you've just said there, David, is we can't fix all of this. And in fact, we are in, as it is literally said, a global pandemic. We're also in lots of other things. There's, what's interesting is the news cycle. I feel like the news cycle has been on overdrive for the last 5 years, at least. It feels like we lurch from crisis to something that sounds even worse than where we were. But that doesn't mean to say we are necessarily heading for complete annihilation. We're just moving in a direction. And we also see at the same time fixes and things being sorted out and some big issues that maybe we could have argued were untouchable or we were putting to one side, like Black Lives Matter or Me Too, have, I wouldn't say fixed, but they've at least been moved along a journey that even 10 years ago, those issues were just being ignored. So maybe those little starfish got fixed while some others didn't. So you want to fix things.
I do want to fix things. I also think that I have been focused on the fixing, but I also think that there is a bigger picture and a larger opportunity. I talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, that I get why we spend so much time focused on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, on the high holidays. I understand why we invest so much time and energy and money into last year and this year, the production of those services and those experiences. I also think it's a real shame because we are perpetuating this myth or this idea that those are the only important days. And one of the things that I've really wanted to encourage folks is don't just fix the high holidays. Think about, I guess it's to a certain extent, it's still a bunch of starfish, but think about holistically, how are you reaching your folks? What does your synagogue, what does your Jewish community, what do you want it to look like in 5 years, in 10 years? I promise you won't be using the same technologies. We're going to be using technologies in 5 and 10 years that don't even exist today. But what do you want it to, how do you want to be able to reach people? Do you want to be nimble enough and brave enough to try new things, to be on the cutting edge, to use technologies to your benefit, instead of, we have a big service coming up, and so I'm going to hire a company to come in and do this work for me. I'm not knocking that because I know that's part of what you do, but I think we're not going to do that every Saturday. We're not going to hire a production company.
So I think
how do we set ourselves up for success long term?
Absolutely, and I guess a classic example of this is what we've just seen at the moment, and we're seeing at the moment with the Paralympics, is the Olympics is a good example of oh look, we've built everything for one big thing. And when you do build it for one big thing, and there's been quite a few examples in the press in the UK showing old Olympic venues which are empty. I think the swimming pool, the last picture I saw, the swimming pool in Rio, which is only 5 years old, is empty at the moment. Maybe, I'm not sure it's exactly correct, but it's that sort of thing. And so we build all these mega stadia, mega events, as you said, to support a very short term goal, this big thing once a year, and as we've, but to me, as you've said, and I agree with you here, David, that I always say to people, it's small numbers and changes. People say, but there's no point in us streaming on Facebook because we only got 12 people on there. There's no point in streaming on Twitter or on this platform or that platform because there was only 6 people. And I'm like, yeah, but that's 6 people more. If you start putting them into squares, into the seats in your sanctuary, and you sit there and you go, well, we've got 6 there, we've got 12 there, we've got another 11 here. Maybe that's not a massive number, but actually when you start adding it up, and then they go, and then what ends up happening with all of these things is all of these outlining things like Twitter or whatever, they start watching here and then they come and watch you on there. And eventually, if you're a synagogue that uses Zoom because of the connections, a lot of people then will say, well, we're going to Zoom. But they don't necessarily start there. You need to bring them in. And, if I said to any synagogue, well, if you open your doors and 6 new people walk past and they will come in, I defy any synagogue, apart from maybe Central, that will not be saying, get 6 more people in the door. Even they would actually, but it's like, because we need to grow. Yeah, I know. I think I talked about some of this last time about missionary things and last time, but there is a natural reality, particularly with an aging population, particularly as you said, with where we're going, that we need to ensure that these things move forward and we bring more people in. And if fixing them is the way we do it, the way you do it, you break a barrier down, which opens more people up, then, things are going to go. So with the High Holy Days literally around the corner, David, what is the thing that you feel, if you're sitting there as a synagogue who's done nothing or is really worried, what would you be saying to them now? They've got this big mountain in front of them. What do they do to get those first few steps?
I think I would say 2 things. I think I would start with just do it. Regardless of the equipment that you have. I mean, I'm happy to, any of us could share with you how to up your game when it comes to equipment, when it comes to audio or video or any of that. But regardless of that, just do it. Just make sure that you are as accessible as possible to as many people as possible. And the second thing I would say is, and I learned this actually from Elevation Church, is remember that 30% of online engagement is in the form of streaming. The other 70% is in looking at people's comments and reading them. Guy, were you at the StreamYard thing today at all?
I was at some of it. Yeah.
So I don't know if you saw Guy Vanderchuck's keynote. He gave a keynote speech, and one of the things that he was talking about is how he's a media mogul and and he said that he replies. I don't know if he actually does it, but he replies to almost every comment on his videos.
Yeah, I heard that. He said the first 10,000 tweets that he received, he replied to.
Unbelievable. And that's how you build those connections. It's the streaming is important. The getting the message out there. And I want to say also that Christo says here, it's right. This is powerful that if someone could see a live broadcast on Facebook, YouTube, and they really needed to hear what was said, and their life improves, right? You never know what good can come. Absolutely. Stream, put it out there. The more important piece, I think, when it comes to engagement, when it comes to connection, when it comes to nourishing spiritual growth, is making those connections, is engaging with people on chat, picking up the phone and calling them or emailing them or texting them or what, right? However we can reach our online audiences in between the streams, that's what we need to do. I think that's what I would say.
So I'm going to take it in a slightly different direction, but very similar to that. In my other life, I'm a season ticket holder at Watford Football Club. We used to have our manager at Watford Football Club was a guy, Graham Taylor. I remember I said something. I can't remember what it was. It doesn't really matter. He rang me up. So this is the head coach of the football club, rang me up. And during the whole of the first lockdown, a member of the playing staff or a member of the management rang virtually every single one of their 15,000 season ticket holders.
Wow.
They rang them up. They just rang them up, said, how are you doing? I'm ringing from Watford Football Club. I hope you're well. We're looking forward to you coming back. Now, okay, somebody's probably sat there and done the numbers. It's probably not, with phone costs, etc. And it makes a huge difference. And the reality is, and you know this as well, when I moved house, the first people through the door here to sort of give me something was one of the rabbis.
Yeah.
And I just feel that level of touch, and maybe it's digital, it's going to be digital over the next period of time. And the reason why a lot of synagogues will have Kiddush at the end, and the Kiddush at the end is there for everybody to talk to. And, one of the team will actually sit there and reach out and ask everybody how they are. It's there because you need to do it, because there's a lot of people who are sitting there at home and go, maybe they speak to of a certain age, they'll talk to their relatives on a regular basis, but to hear a different voice ask them the same question and that they've got an answer 10 times, my stepfather, I'll ask this, he'll tell me the same thing he's told me 12 times before. So will my father, but they want to hear that from somebody else, and it's great. And I think it's one of those. How do you write it down as one of the services we do on a piece of paper is this? And it's like, right. It isn't. It's an unwritten service. And I think it's even more so at this moment in time is that criticality of keeping in that communication, keeping in touch. And online, it happens just as well. And I think it's vital that, as you say, it's this is why we're doing this, or this is why you're doing it, and this is why I'm doing it from a different perspective. Is to say to people, I'm not looking at how many people are watching. That's not really the point. It's not saying, well, that was a failure because we didn't have 700 people. It's saying, well, if it makes a difference to 4 people or 3 people or one person's watching it, it makes a difference. And there's a
Right.
really good comment on there from Daniel Klingerman. I don't know if you've got that one. The one before that, actually. And he, and he's, as he's saying, we made a difference.
Right.
I don't know if it was you or me. It doesn't really matter.
One of the two of us, yeah, both of us. Can you address his second post though? This isn't right. So I think a lot of synagogues are wrestling with this. Hybrid services on Zoom, it's working like a charm, but they need a live technician. Do you need a live technician to be successful in a hybrid or digital experience?
I think you do. I think you do, really. I think you do, the same way as you have a shamus in your synagogue that will look after people, put them in the right seats, make sure they've got the right book facing the right way up, and helping them when they need to go to the toilet and not smashing the door open and closed. You need them. Is it a difficult role? Not really now. I think a lot of people are now picked up and understand how to use Zoom to that level. Do you have to be super efficient and run a really complex version of like Zoom OSC and be able to spotlight people in 14 milliseconds? No. But I do think you need some level. You do need somebody to be able to mute out and control people. Control is maybe too big a word. It's gently push people and nudge so that the service can continue without the rabbis having to sit there and flick on the buttons. I think that's a vital role.
And here's the beauty of being in digital space is that you don't need to be on site necessarily. So I was actually just having a conversation with our rabbi, the congregational rabbi here, and he was talking with me about slichot, about this experience he's doing for slichot. And he was asking me, okay, I want to have, it's going to be hybrid, so we're going to have people in the room, and we're going to be using an owl camera, right? So we're going to have everyone sitting in a circle, put the owl camera in the middle, which is it's not high quality, but it's a really nice solution for this kind of thing. And he wants to be able to put up slides on the screen and in screen share. And he was asking me how to do this. And I told him, I said, well, here's how you can do it. But the other option is just let me host the meeting and I'll just throw those slides up for you. No worries, no harm, no foul. And I can stay at home, right? My office is an hour away from my home. So I can do it all from home. I actually, this question about Zoom Gabbis, as soon as I heard the term Zoom Gabbai, I immediately went out and I bought zoomgabbai.com. So if anyone's interested, you can go to zoomgabbai.com. But I was calling them Torah Techies before Zoom Gabbai became a big thing. But I have thought about how can we create a cadre of people who can do this work from wherever they are. Because like you said, it's not that complicated. You need to just be good with Zoom and you have to have the right tools. For some people that would be having 2 monitors. For other people, it may be having a Stream Deck. Or for other people, it may just have an itchy clicker finger so that you can move around quickly. But pairing up congregations that need that kind of support with people who might want to offer that as a service to the community. I haven't really done anything with this yet, but because it is a need, I think, and you're right that it's really important to have, Leo.
And I think it's the same. I mean, when I set my own company up, and this is going in this, you'll see where I'm going here. One of the things that we did at the beginning, and a lot of companies do this when you're a small company, is we would clean our own office because it's another few pounds to save in there. But then you realize that you are doing something that really there's people who are better at it. and there's people that you can get to do that job, and you can pay them to do it, and it frees you up from one other thing that you need to do and that's tiring you out. And it's very similar. I mean, yes, at the beginning of this lockdown in the UK, and I'm sure it may be very similar, that a lot of weight was put on the rabbis to do everything, to be doing this, to launching the Zoom. It was their Zoom set, their Zoom login, launching the Zoom, starting it all, doing the thing, setting all set, pulling everybody in the waiting room, and then pushing everybody out, and then doing all this, and then everything and everything and everything. And I don't know what your High Holy Days was like last year, but at the end of the High Holy Days last year, for me, and where I was involved with my synagogue, I think we all went home and slept. We just literally collapsed. Because it was really, really hard work. And it was like, and I remember speaking to one of my rabbis who was saying it was probably the hardest service they've ever done, or the hardest day, particularly Yom Kippur, where you're just going and going and going and going and going. And it just feels like there's nothing coming back. And it's sort of like reciting something in front of an empty room, and it was hard work. So
I don't think we realize,
the more
Leo,
you can pass over.
I don't think we realize what you just said is so important, that davening or speaking to an empty room. I don't think we realized how important it was for us as leaders to be able to see the people that we, so that we could have a congregation, for those. And this is why you can engage on YouTube and Facebook. You absolutely can. For me personally, it is much better to be able to, it is important for me to be able to see other faces. And so Zoom has been, or whatever you choose to use, Meet, Zoom, whatever Microsoft, I don't even, Teams, any of them are fine. But now I hope rabbis, cantors, educators have monitors so they can see those faces, so they can know that they're not speaking as John Oliver's, into the void, that they're actually human beings that are with them, even though it's not in the same physical space.
Yeah, and I think the comments that you watch and you see, so I'm sitting here I look over here because I've got the chat window coming up, and we're seeing the comments that are coming in, and the feeling that you're actually engaging with people wherever they are, and you're touching and you're helping, I think is vital, because I spent a really long time as leading. I was a Cub Scout leader, and I was involved in the Scout Association for a huge amount of time. And I always used it. And one of the things that was one of the best things I always remember is I turned around at a meeting and I said, I'm going to read this list out. And I read out the list of all of the explorers and the universities they went to. And every single one of those explorers literally every single one of them were my Cubs. So Cubs, they finished at 10. They went all the way through. And I'm like, they all went to university. Now, I'm not saying that they all went to university just because of me. But I know that I had an influence that has made those young people to a different degree than possibly they could have achieved without. And to be able to get the feedback, and the same with this, to be able to get that feedback and to know where they're going, and to feel that you've put somebody on a journey to somewhere, and that you've moved them into improved their opportunities. And I think that's always the case. And I do think that religion, and I do think there's a lot to be said about Judaism that can improve people's opportunities. It's not saying that it's going to change. People can't change what they do in some ways, but it will give them the opportunities. And I hope that's the way it works. And that's why I'm really supportive, particularly of like the youth movement side, that we can improve it. And if we can do that, and we can make it better, and we can help people on this journey, then maybe it's been worth it.
Yeah.
And the comments coming back to me and to you and the people that are saying things, just to me is like, that helps to know that I'm just not talking to a wall.
Right. And by the way, I'll tell you from the other side, I'm part of the Ecamm. Ecamm is what I use to produce all this stuff, and I'm very active in the Facebook group and on YouTube, and I watch a lot of the streams, and I'm not ashamed to say that I love hearing the person on YouTube say my name, and I love when they acknowledge my comment. It because again it makes it so that it matters that I'm there. And I think that at a certain point, religion or not, everybody wants to know that it matters that they're there. They matter.
And so there is a really good segue to why Yiscor is so important. Because to me, Yiscor is so important because you're now, it's sad. Of course it is. But it's also really important to me when I've had relatives' names called out, because you're actually saying, I'm standing there because they were there before me, and it's really super important. And seeing and hearing those names called out both hurts, and also you don't want to not hear those names being called out. And I'm just hearing the names for them as well as for myself. I don't know if that's how you ever feel about it, David, but when you're calling out those names, you're like, you're bringing back to life something. And I think calling out names and I think it's really important that people do that they say, so and so from so and so says this, so and so from so and so has joined us from here, because you are actually involving and bringing people in. Yeah. That's my feeling of that.
Rabbi David Ingber, I showed this video at the summit that we were part of. Rabbi David Ingber, I think, did just a magical job of this. I only saw it once, but I'm sure he does it often, where he recognizes everyone who's in the sanctuary physically, and he recognizes everyone who's in the as he calls it, the Zoomagogue, which is just it's just beautiful. By the way, I just wanted to mention, you talked before about how stressful last year was, and rabbis and cantors having to, use their own, set up Zoom and all that other stuff. So many people that I know of are schlepping their laptops in and out of the sanctuary to use this as streaming machines. I want to make sure that anyone who's watching knows that at 7:00 Eastern tonight, on the Hybrid Ministries channel on Facebook, they're actually going to be talking about streaming computers and what you might want to consider. I'm going to try and be there myself. I don't know if it's a little late for you. I don't know if you're going to try and be there, but
I am.
Beautiful. So yeah, so they're going to, that's going to be, if I know it's late for this year, but for the whole year, for every Shabbos, if you need to invest in any kind of streaming computer or dedicated streaming computer, those are the folks that are going to.
And that's a point that you said. You may use if you use the High Holy Days as the springboard to get the equipment in that you're going to do there, and that is every synagogue I've been involved in, I've turned around to them and it's like, do not buy equipment for High Holy Days. Buy equipment that you're going to use during the year. Maybe you're going to put it down in quotes to be used in the High Holy Days as your springboard, but don't. I can't really get my head around spending a huge amount of money in a production company that only you use once for those services, and then they're gone, and you go, look at that, we've got a DVD box set of the High Holy Days, because I think that's not going to create that long-term thing, because I don't know. This is my prediction. I don't think it's really a difficult prediction. Every High Holy Days from today onwards, or from this year onwards, will be in some form or another, for those synagogues which are already streaming, will continue to be streamed.
Yeah,
I cannot see anybody turning it off. I mean, by that, I realize that I am saying that that obviously there is Orthodox and there are certain conservative synagogues that aren't streaming or have, I can understand. I'm not trying to make that difference, or suggest anything that's wrong in that environment. What I'm saying is those that have adopted it and now doing it will continue doing it. And I guess that. What do you think, David?
No, I think you're absolutely right. And, it's interesting. Live Control, which is, they also spoke at the summit. They're a service that you basically are outsourcing the controlling and the switching of your service. So they take control of your PTZ cameras, or they give you PTZ cameras, and then they remote cut your show. And what's interesting is that people asked me originally, can I hire them just for the high holidays? And they don't do that. They have year-long. The idea is that you hire them for the year because they want you to have a consistent experience, a consistent streaming experience long-term. That it's not just about these high holidays. It is going to be about next high holidays and the ones after that, and about all the Shabbatot that are in between. And so I think you're absolutely right. Christo, thank you, by the way, Christo, for these amazing comments, and everyone who's participating.
Really good.
Selwyn says tradition. Christo says he always asks people on Zoom to inform them if they have audio video problems. That's really interesting. I imagine, so Christo, if I understand correctly, you're not the clergy leader. You're sort of the Zoom clergy, if you will, the digital clergy. That's another thing that I think synagogues or Jewish communities in general will need to start thinking about is, do we need to have a dedicated person or dedicated people to run our online engagement, our online services, our online, to help with those tech problems? Because it's not just the leaders that have the tech problems, it's participants also. So, do we need to...
I've seen that. I saw a really good initiative by another synagogue near me. And what they did is they contacted their members and said, who's got problems trying to get this sorted out. At the beginning, when we couldn't visit, etc., they were putting into a box a very simple tablet along with a 4G modem and saying, okay, this is it. We're going to provide you that. I would say now, if you were going to do that, you would give somebody a Facebook portal, because it's far easier and it does everything that you need it to do. But it's that point of setting up and understanding and saying, I need to give you something that gets you in there. And it was the same argument of where you used to have large font sidors, or you would have other things that you would need just so that you get certain people, or ensure that
the hearing devices,
a hearing loop. Yeah, exactly. So you fitted a hearing loop. In fact, we have a nightmare at one place because one congregate's hearing aid seems to set the whole sound system off. We're almost
on the same frequency.
It's on the same frequency. Yeah, everybody else's changes. It's like, we really want to zap it, but that's not what we can do. But it is really important that the community, the congregation, the other members, the people that are not at the front, this is their opportunity to also step in, help, get this going, because as we say, this isn't going to go away, and every year that it continues, that there are going to be more and more people in a more elderly generation is going to grow and grow and grow, and we want you to be involved in this and witness what's happening, as we talked about last time.
Right, and again, it's not going away, and that's the depressing, sad, we have to do this part. And here is this moment, right? Here is this opportunity. And there are people out there like Leo, like everyone in office hours, like me, who want to help you do it well and do it and get the most bang for your buck and give the best production value and use best practices, because this is a moment and an opportunity. And I love sharing it with you.
But so also from your perspective, though, David, we've talked about, sometimes you end up dwelling on the negatives. maybe it's a Jewish tradition.
Sure.
But there's a lot, but there's the positives. Out of all of the things that you've seen and talked about, what would you say you've seen is the positive things that you've actually seen, the opportunities that you've seen over the last year and a half that you are going to you're looking forward to seeing or continuing in the future?
I'll give you one example. Let me see if I can find it. There is, yeah, I did. Here we go. So there's an Orthodox synagogue in Boca Raton, Florida. And the rabbi there are 3 rabbis there. The rabbi there, Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, all 3 rabbis are amazing guys. And they started a podcast called Behind the Bima. And this thing is huge. It's huge. They've had the Prime Minister of Israel on. They've had, I mean, look at all these. They had, let's see, Nachum Siegel, Charlie Harari from Aish, Eli Beer from United Hatzalah. They've had the most amazing Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, the most unbelievable guests on. It's all, it's just a podcast that they do. I mean, now I don't know if he's using OBS or something. He's using something to make it look really nice. They have graphics now and everything. This started as a way for these rabbis to kind of reach in a different way their community. There's an Orthodox shul, and it's just fantastic. It really, it's funny, it's informative, it's learned, and I can't imagine that they're going to. I hope they don't stop doing this. It's just fantastic. I love it.
These are exactly. This is where I've got similar things. Is my exposure to people that I've met, particularly at Times of Israel, people I've met around the world, and seen things. I did a global sukkah hop last year with United Synagogue in the UK, and they did it with the Commonwealth. The British Commonwealth synagogues and everywhere. We went to some fabulous places. I didn't realize about synagogues in India.
Yeah.
I didn't know about the synagogues in some of the African countries and their sukkahs. And you're like looking at this and you're thinking,
that's right.
This has opened my eyes. I mean, obviously I knew there was like the ones in Australia and all of that, but you're looking at some of these things and you're going, this is fabulous. I also did a live music event with Hungary, with Art Zena in Hungary, and you're seeing these guys and you're like, wow, this is actually, in quotes, the old country coming back to life again in certain areas. And it's particularly relevant with the new synagogue opening in Germany today or this week. These things are coming around, and you're seeing it. You're actually witnessing things which you may read about, but you're actually seeing them. And I think that's maybe something that this is enabling us to see and feel. That's right. And as you said earlier, access, and do we have a connection with it, David? I guess that's what we've asked today is, do we have a connection with things that we see digitally? And my gut feeling is, and from what I feel, my answer to the question you asked is yes, we do.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. Certainly possible. All right, friends. Thanks, Leo.
Good Thank you, David.
I'll see you in an hour, I think, right?
I'll see you in an hour. And we
Ministries. Yeah.
And good luck for everybody who's planning for the High Holy Days. And 5782, here we come.
Here we come. All right, everyone. See you next time. Bye.